wasn't any good ones to take, and this guy's like, particular, right? The guy has really got a personal ability. Serious, this guy was empty, it wasn't happening. So I was just going to cut it off.
Comes off with shining colors. I mean, when I met him, it was like, wow, this guy's really got his shit together.
Yeah, you're right, and he was doing it on TikTok. You're right. I think everybody needs to serious particulars that because he does come on my God. I know everything from TikTok and what's this. Like, that's funny. You can see him doing an interview when I'm teaching out the LT. He was doing some interview on phone. The ideas. I said, he's kind of pretty good ideas. What I didn't really know. You're just checking to see if there's any options. It's like, at the time, you're right, I didn't know. And you're right, he comes off, and that's scary.
He's very powerful.
They're harder to detect in the beginning. It isn't until like work situation where you do that too, and you realize that this is not a good thing. Yeah, you get past the detector or something like I can do that. And psychopaths can do that. They specialize in manipulating people to get them what they want. They'll say whatever they think they need to say to get you where they want you. Not that it's real, true, or anything. That's whatever it needs to be here. Yeah,
what you want to hear.
Right. I'm just bullshit line over words. So, yeah.
And then he said that.
And I'm pretty social about it. You're right. But it enhance your life anyway. So if you want to try to be as gentle so you can say, look at your life here. When I met you, we were made up. So, this is that. And, we're not to be with each other. We shouldn't even be together anyway. Like, it's not something that is more in bodies of your teenage together. You can be treated like shit. You don't say that, but, somebody so that it's not just you blowing him, but you blowing him off also. She would benefit you. Next to it. You already got that piece of good years. Don't waste it in a relationship that's not working. It's not working. It's not wasting any differences. You can throw out the cultural differences as well. So many different things. Cultural. Don't ever feel like you're doing him. You do need to get into that because you'll go, I respect you, we should do that. And you're going to do that. Go for a happy relationship. Because it's not me. I wasn't happy. Things were never resolved like you thought that they were. No, don't really have a viable working relationship. So let's just leave it alone and let it be. Can you say all that without freaking out?
I don't need you to come here. I've got to take care of.
Okay. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, so I'm a little bit like this. Yeah.
But talking to you right now, you should realize it's definitely not the time for you. Don't push me to do this, but I'll get a restraining order. But come on, Rich, go have a good night. Go find something, whatever level you think you can start with. I don't know. I would never done something fun with something like that. Those kind of people creep me out. I don't know. I just get creeped out by people like that. I am able to take care of myself. And so I don't need to have something like that in my life. So I have conscious about that. Yeah. So you just do that, and if you have anyone doing all the things you're doing, I think we're going to use some serious particulars that because you guys come on my God. I know everything from TikTok and what's this. That's funny. You can see me do that interview when I'm teaching out the LT. You can see me interview on phone. Hear my ideas. I said, he's kind of pretty good ideas. What I didn't really know. You're just checking to see if there's any options here. At the time, I didn't know. That's scary.
He's very powerful.
They're You're psychopath. And they specialize in manipulating people to get what they want. They'll say whatever they need to say to get you where they want you. Not that it's real, true, or is whatever it needs to be. Yeah, that's what you want to hear.
That's where the manipulator is very crafty, is they learn that person.
Right. And so if you want to say to the agenda, so you can say, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Or they don't. So, this is that. So, what are you going to do? Anyway, like something that like more in life of your relationship. You don't say that, but somebody. So that it's not just you, like you also benefits you. You already have that don't waste it in a relationship that's not going to. It's not working. It's not wasting it. You don't have to hold on to it. You'll never get like you do. I want to tell you, things are going to resolve like you thought they were. Don't really have a viable working relationship. So let's just leave it alone. Is that alright with Andrew?
He was doing M2 charming. AM super charming. He's a serious manipulator, psychopathic level. AM super charming. It's funny because he was doing that interview. They're harder to detect somebody like that. Somebody like that can get past the detectors. A psychopath they will say whatever they need to say to get you to the point where they want you. Like the Mark situation that he did to you. You should feel pretty comfortable where you're at. He doesn't enhance your life any. You only have a few good years left, so don't waste it on an unhappy relationship. Go for a happy relationship. Things were never resolved like you think they were. Actually, that's scary. You should feel pretty comfortable where you're at. Doesn't enhance your life any. Don't waste your years on a relationship that's not going anywhere. You will never be a slave to him. Can you say all that? Go for a happy relationship. Things were never resolved. We don't really have a viable relationship. So, let's just leave it alone. Bullshit lair all the way. Can you say all? Gullible is when an individual can be deceived easily. Just as a naive person, a gullible person also lacks judgment. However, the difference is that while a naive person can be young and new to a particular setting, a gullible person may not. There is a difference between the two words, naive and gullible. The naive person gets feedback from others, and that's what I thought I was doing. I am thinking my sister's got my back and that she's just being overly protective. I wasn't going to my sister to rip me apart, I was going to my sister because as a little girl I admired her. Which made me blind to her emotional abuse, gaslighting, brainwashing and jabs of hatred and poking at Rich. I saw as everyone has a right to their own opinion. I have learned that's not true, and I have learned that some people are extremely toxic. I wanted to believe that my sister loved me and I project my kindness onto her. Cindy is pure evil and sadistic. Rich has done some betraying things, but am extremely forgiving person and I would have forgiven him. Naming evil, dark triad, tetrad, malignant narcissism. Does the recipe for evil mix psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism, sadism? Source: Wikimedia Commons. In psychology, we tend to avoid qualitative personal descriptors, especially evil, even though it's one of the most heavily discussed topics in the history of discussing anything. What is it? While some say actions can be evil but people cannot, much of the world disagrees with that latter notion. Most see evil people, maybe many or maybe few, but evil in most eyes nonetheless. Psychologist Erich Fromm, who fled from Nazi Germany before World War II, spent much of his career trying to understand evil. While trying to make sense of why normal people frightened by the Great Depression allowed the Nazis to rise to power, he decided that the most basic human dilemma is the conflict between freedom and security, and that people will give up one to reclaim the other, more easily surrendering liberty to feel secure. That idea, perhaps his best known, concerned relinquishing freedom to evil, but he did not stop there. Fromm stared into the evil itself. Eventually he coined the term malignant narcissism to describe extreme, exploitative selfishness, the most severe pathology and the root of the most vicious destructiveness and inhumanity, which he considered to be the quintessence of evil. 1964, p. 37. Psychoanalyst Otto Kernberg, 1970, followed up on this, viewing the malignant narcissist as a sadistic psychopath. Objective assessment of these qualitative concepts could be elusive. How do we measure evil? In the 21st century, some researchers have begun to describe it in terms of three overlapping personality features for which some measurement instruments exist: psychopathy, narcissism, and Machiavellianism at their most extreme, maladaptive levels, together known as the Dark Triad. Jacobowitz and Egan, 2006, Polhus and Williams, 2002. Psychopathy, whereas diagnosticians assess the DSM diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder based mostly on overt antisocial actions. American Psychiatric Association, 2013. Some clinicians find it more useful to look at psychopathy, a pattern defined largely by absence of empathy, lacking the emotional aspects of a conscience. Cleckley, 1941-1976. A psychopath indifferent to the feelings or fates of others might not actively want to inflict harm or control them either, so psychopathy is not by itself all-encompassing evil as most people would see it. Narcissism, more than mere vanity, the maladaptive form of self-obsession that people usually mean by narcissism, is epitomized in the DSM's narcissistic personality disorder. A massively egotistic person could still have a conscience, though, even if short-sighted and self-centered. A psychopathic narcissist, however, would be super egotistical without a conscience to hold him or her back. Article continues after advertisement. Machiavellianism, named for Niccolò Machiavelli, who wrote about the manipulative nature of politics. Machiavellianism refers to a detached, calculating attitude regarding manipulativeness. The main test for this trait, the Mach 4, Christie and Geiss, 1970, identifies attitudes about pragmatism and manipulation rather than manipulative ability itself. As awful as a manipulative egotist who lacks a conscience might be, that person might still take no delight in other people's pain. Cold indifference is not pleasure. The person who scores high in all aspects of the Dark Triad, though exploitative, might still fall short of Fromm's quintessence of evil if that person does not actively enjoy cruelty for its own sake. So to the Dark Triad, some researchers added one more item to form a dark tetrad and maybe describe evil a bit better. Book ETAL, 2016, Shabral ETAL, 2009, Medovy and Petrovic, 2015. Source, Wikimedia Commons. Sadism, sadists enjoy hurting others. Named for the Marquis d'Onatien Alphonse François de Sada, sadism means deriving pleasure from other people's suffering. When the manipulative egotist who lacks a conscience gets thrills from making people suffer, when that person enjoys ruining lives and hurts people just for the sheer fun of hurting them, that's the person more people will call evil. If all four of those overlapping qualities are so deeply, persistently ingrained in the personality that the combination defines who that person is, it might be hard not to call someone with that mixture evil. Difference between naive and gullible. Naive vs. gullible. Although the words gullible and naive sound very much similar and are used interchangeably by most people, there is a slight difference between these two words. First, let us pay attention to the definitions of the two words. Naive is when an individual lacks the experience or judgment. For example, a young person can be naive because he lacks exposure to the new surrounding. This can make him vulnerable as he is unable to detect hidden motives that other people have. Gullible is when an individual can be deceived easily. Just as a naive person, a gullible person also lacks judgment. However, the difference is that while a naive person can be young and new to a particular setting, a gullible person may not. Through this article, let us examine the difference between the two words, naive and gullible. What is naive? Naive lacks experience or judgment. A person who is naive can think of the world as all pure and good, although, in reality, the world is completely different from the point of view of the naive person. A naive person has less wisdom of the world. His knowledge of the world in general and of the people is limited. He believes that people are good at heart and says what they think. He does not realize that people can have hidden agendas. His view of things is very simple and can be compared to that of a child. A naive person does not contemplate that others would cheat and lie. He naively believes what other people tell him. A person can be naive because he has less exposure to the society. For example, imagine a child who has been raised in a very confined setting with less exposure to the real world. This individual grows up into being a naive person because of this lack of experience and judgment. Naive girl lacks experience and judgment. What is gullible? Gullible is when a person can be easily deceived. Such a person can be manipulated into believing almost any ridiculous thing because he lacks social knowledge. People who are gullible are usually very trusting of others and believe what they say is accurate. Just as a naive person, a gullible person is unable to detect lies and treachery. For example, imagine a person to whom a worthless piece of land has been sold by duping him to believe that it is, in fact, a valuable asset. A normal person cannot be so easily duped because he has social awareness. The person would ask around, try to find some solid information before buying the land. However, a gullible person functions in a different way. He would buy the land without any inquiring. Mostly the words gullible and naive go together, however, the difference is that while a naive person lacks experience, a gullible person may not. Still, he becomes easily manipulated.
The effect of this mistreatment is a seething rage, like a far-off hiss of a poisonous snake.
The guy's gotta pass some serious markers. I'm really particular. I was just going to cut it off. Super charming. That's why I think he is a serious manipulator, psychopathic level. That's funny because he was doing an interview. They can get past the detector, the psychopath. They specialize. They will say manipulating people. They will say whatever you want here, not that it's real or true. That's why I told you what's good about going down to California, so you saw it. He was treating you like shit and wouldn't even talk to you. That's why I told you to go down to California, so you saw it. 3 to 4 weeks of living hell because you were vacillating. So you should feel pretty comfortable then where you're at. He doesn't enhance your life in any way. I was sure why you were going along with it as long as you were, so let him down gently. Tell him to go for someone who enjoys being treated like shit. You only have a few good years left, so go for someone happy. Can you say all that? That he would benefit too. You only have another 10 years, so don't waste on a relationship that's not going anywhere, that's not working. You will never be a slave to him. When he says I will respect you, things were never resolved like you think they were. We don't really have a working relationship. Can you say all that without him freaking out? You should realize that he's bad news. Did you tell him that? Did you tell him that? I mean, come on, Rich. I would have never gone that far. That kind of person creeps me out. You should realize. I can take care of myself. I don't need that.